Around the World, 40 Tales. My name is Doreen Vanderstoep, and I am a Calgary-based storyteller, musician, and writer, and a proud longtime member of Storytelling Alberta. This year, our organization is celebrating its 40th birthday. To mark this momentous occasion, we invited Storytelling Alberta members, past and present, to gift us the story of 5 to 10 minutes in any genre from anywhere in the world, from the prairies to the Alps to the Serengeti. We are live streaming these stories for your viewing and listening pleasure throughout this special year. As we go along, we're tracking the geographic origins of these stories on a world map posted on our website. Please visit us at storytellingalberta.com to track where in the world our imaginations or real lives have taken us. Now, before we get to today's story, we wish to acknowledge that Storytelling Alberta members live and tell stories on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaties 4, 6, 7, and 8. These traditional territories also include the Métis settlements and the 6 regions of the Métis Nation of Alberta. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in, cared for, and told oral stories on these lands for generations. We make this acknowledgement with sincerity in the spirit of gratitude and reconciliation. Our first installment, today is our launch, our first installment of Around the World in 40 Tales is courtesy of Mary Hayes. Mary, welcome to Around the World in 40 Tales.
Hello, everybody.
So great to have you with us today. So based in Calgary, Mary Hayes is a founding member of Storytelling Alberta, which was formerly known as Tales, the Alberta League Encouraging Storytelling. Some of you may know it by that name. Mary is also the co-founder of the Story Share project here in Calgary. She has been telling stories for decades at the kitchen table, in the garden, and in schools, libraries, museums, and even in the graveyard, and the teepee as well. In 2020, Mary was named Storytelling Alberta's Storyteller Laureate, and well-deserved it is. Here is Mary with the Scottish tale, The Brownie of Ferne Glen.
Thank you so much, Doreen. And as Doreen said, my name is Mary Hayes, and I have been telling stories with Tales and Storytelling Alberta pretty much since the beginning, not the very beginning, but very early on. And it's a great thrill to tell a story for Around the World in 40 Tales. Sounds great, doesn't it? And as Doreen mentioned, this is a Scottish tale, The Brownie of Ferne Glen. I had the great opportunity to visit Scotland as an adult not too long ago. And I stood upon the doorstep of the house where my grandmother was born and lived as a girl. It was a great moment for me, for that household and the stories of the house had featured large in our kitchen table stories. And as a child, I loved the name of the house, Buttery Banks on the River Isla, near the town of Cooper Angus. When I was there as an adult, I thought about my grandmother, and I thought about how she left Scotland to travel all the way to the wilds of Canada. And there she met Carl. They married and had 3 daughters and homesteaded at Arikana, not too far from where I live now. And oh, I know that she had grown up as a town girl. She had much to learn on the farm. Cows, horses, chickens, turkeys, pigs. And when Carl passed away and she was left a widow with her 3 little girls to raise, she had to learn how to drive a car and even the tractor. And I wonder if my grandmother, late at night on the homestead, wished that a little Scottish brownie would come out of the prairie darkness to help her finish the work she didn't have time for I'm sure there was much work to be done. So let's go back to Scotland and let's hear about one of those brownies, the Brownie of Ferne Glen. So long ago, there was a brownie that lived in Ferne Glen, and that was the leafy part below the hillside. And up on the hillside, there was the farm of Ferne Glen. Now the leafy bottom, well, that was the abode of the brownie. And Brownie only came out at night. He would come up the hill to the farm and do the work that they didn't have time for. He would pull the turnips or weed the garden. And the kind lady of Ferne Glen, she left out a dish of creamy milk upon the doorstep with an extra dollop of cream. She said, we must feed our dear Brownie, for he does all the work that we don't have time for. And so he grew to love that lady of Ferne Glen. Now, the other people, they were terrified of meeting the brownie in the dark of night. And they would go miles around the glen, not to go in the glen at night. Because Brownie, well, he was an odd, wee little creature, stood about this tall, but all covered in hair with a long, long beard. He had long, ungainly arms and the feet of a frog, big red eyes. But at night, he would come out and do the work. Now, one night he did just that, and he could see the candles burning in the house of Ferne Glen, and he wondered what was the commotion. He went and stood at the back doorstep and he listened, and he could hear the servants running here and there, calling out. It was apparent that the lady of Ferne Glen had taken deathly ill, and they must send for the nurse to heal her, but she lived down on the other side of the glen, and there was no one brave enough to travel at night. Now the gentleman couldn't go, for he was sitting at his wife's bedside. Oh, Brownie was furious, and he called out, they are fools, idiots, and dolts. I shall go. Now he took a cloak from the back doorstep and he draped it over his ungainly body. He ran out to the barn and he saddled up the fastest horse. And he commanded, horse, if you've ever traveled fast, travel faster tonight. And they were down and through the glen as fast as an arrow shot from a bow, and soon came to the old woman's cottage. And Brownie pounded upon her door. She answered, who calls? And he said, come quick, for you must minister to the lady of Ferne Glen. She's deathly ill. Have they sent a cart? Asked the old woman. No, you shall ride on the horse with me. Well, he spoke in such a commanding way that the old woman dressed and was down in a minute. And soon she was up on the saddle behind him. And he said, hang on tight, old woman. And away they went, down in the darkest part of the glen. The old woman was shivering with fear. And she asked, oh, I hope we'll not meet the brownie on this dark, dark night. The rider of the horse replied, Madam, you'll meet no one uglier than me on this dark night. And she hung on all the tighter and she said, I know you to be kind and good to come and get me for the lady, although I have not seen your face. And up they rode up the hill to the farm. And when they arrived, Brownie slipped down off the horse to help the old woman. And as he did so, his cloak fell away. And she could see. The old woman, she said, what manner of beast are you? And he said, "Woman, we have no time for that. You must go in and help the lady. And if those inside the house should ask how it is you come through the glen in the dark of night, tell them you had no other way but to ride with the Brownie of Ferne Glen." And I dedicate that story to the memory of my dear Scottish grandmother who grew up at Buttery Banks. Thank you.
That was amazing, Mary. Thank you so much. What a wonderful story. I dare say we could all use a brownie every now and again. So thank you for your gift of story, Mary. It's what a wonderful way to launch this around the world in 40 tales. If anybody wants to contact Mary, they can email her at storymary@hotmail.com. That's storymary@hotmail.com. And to reach Storytelling Alberta, you can email us at storytellingalberta@gmail.com. A warm thanks to you, Mary, and to all our listeners for joining us around the world. We'll be back next Thursday with another Around the World tale to tell. Until then, take care.
Goodbye, everybody.